There's never been a better time than now to stop what you're doing and tune in to Straight Up, TAB Radio's weekly podcast that will guide you through the difficult journey that is the punt. Whether it be racing or sport, the Straight Up team has your back. Now, from the studios of TAB Radio, welcome to Straight Up.
Yes, welcome along, Riley Morgan. How are you?
Good, Marty Young. How are you?
Yes, going okay. 21.3 degrees out there. Beautiful day.
Just okay?
Just okay. Well, I'm not a part owner of Prospectors Pick. It was funny,
Yes.
we had the great Tony Bahagia on.
Budgie.
And he was, of course, just inducted into the WA Hall of Fame. He was a terrific interview yesterday. I love the little Budge. And he's a part owner of Prospectors Pick as well.
He is. I think there's a big crew of connections heading to Kalgoorlie for the Ron Sayers sprint on Cup Day. So, yeah, very exciting times for all involved.
Good win too. I thought we're in a bit of trouble, top of the lane. He just wanted to overdo it a little bit, I thought. He had to do it at both ends.
Bit of freshness, gave a nice kick. There were some pretty distant margins back to the rest of the field, aside from the second horse, off a little bit of a let-up. 1,200 metres, no trial. I thought, all things considered, it was a pretty nice win for a horse who I think will be suited if he can draw a barrier at Kalgoorlie back to the 1,100 metres in that race on Cup Day for some pretty good prize money.
Well, as we always like to do, we're into the preliminary finals. Who else to talk to than this man?
McGuan gets past Brown. They're lifting the pies. They can sense it. McGuan's had 5 bounces. Nearly get another one. Round he goes. In he goes to an open goal. Vicky McGuan. Goal of the year.
Mick McGuan joins us on Straight Up for this AFL preview thanks to Danks Furniture.
You won't see better than that.
With 6 local stores in the metro area, there's one near you.
Mickey McGuan, goal of the year. He joins us right now. G'day, Mick.
G'day, Marty. G'day, Riley. Pleasure again to join you guys.
Oh, the head wobble would be going all right, wouldn't it? After last week. Big effort. Congratulations.
Only picked it up yesterday.
What a remarkable weekend of football just gone, Mick. Those 2 semi-finals, they had everything.
Did they what? It was just incredible. I love the way Port responded. We thought the week before was clearly an anomaly, and it proved that that was the case. They defended stringently with great intent, great effort. I thought their pressure at the source was incredible right from the outset. And to see Zach Butters to come off the bench and then really charge forward to apply a great tackle from 15 metres away just goes to show how much intent they had, but also respect they had for each other, knowing full well that if he left his post, someone else would replace him. And they played that way all night, and that's the reason why they kept Hawthorn to a pretty measly score by game's end. So full credit should be given to the Port Adelaide team and Ken Hinkley, how he got his players to respond.
How good were, I guess, in comparison to the week before against Geelong, were some of those young backmen and half-backs for Port Adelaide? You look at Burgoyne's game, he was immense. Bergman, I thought Jones was outstanding. Those blokes who really needed to lift really did last week and played a big part in turning that result around.
Yeah, spot on, Riley. And there's 2 other guys you didn't even mention in Josh Sin and also Logan Evans.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt that he was really clean in critical situations and then played with great depth. His metres gained in that game would have been in excess of probably 500 metres, just the way he played and cleared the area. And then you look in front of the ball, I just thought Rioli was simply fantastic. He justified his recruitment in one night, really. Just got a quick mind, a creative mind. His footy IQ was off the charts. The way he found that inside pass to Marshall was terrific. And Georgiades complimenting me. I thought his aerial presence was outstanding. But it was all comes back to their defensive intent, their ability to chase and then stick the tackles was a highlight to me.
We had Mitch Georgiades on the program yesterday, and then I watched 360 last night. I thought I'd missed one there. I didn't mention the most important header of the year.
It was critical. The Hardwick change of direction kick that hit him in the back of the scone.
What about
Bern
that?
Jones was the recipient of a loose ball,
Yep.
and he kicked that goal. So, yeah, that's a goal assist.
Yeah, it is a goal assist. Has to be. Has to
in
be
the
right.
book.
Hey?
It was a
beauty, but it was a game that had everything, didn't it, Mick? The lead up to it was electric all week because of Ginnivan, and then it bubbled over after the last as well.
Yeah, and even, I suppose you look at how they conceded the first 3 goals. They were goalless in the first term, so full credit to the Hawks to bounce back the way they did, and then Deer got that soft free kick against Aaliyah and went back and kicked there first. And then the contentious issue of the night was the dump tackles when they went back-to-back through the Chol goal and also the Moore goal. The dangerous tackle by Jones against Chol, that was up for debate. And then the Burgoyne dangerous tackle on Moore. It's a bit like players who are getting tackled and they're being, you sort of sense as a player, you get thrown to the ground. It's like they're throwing their head inadvertently into the surface and making it obvious to the umpire that this could possibly be claimed as a dangerous tackle because my head hit the ground, and that's a signal to the umpiring department to say maybe that is the case, so they pay it based on the world we're living in currently. And I just think it's an ugly part of the game because I reckon the players who are getting tackled, they're milking it for what it's worth.
Mick, just a quick one from me. It's been a big talking point and we don't have to touch on it for too long, but your experience as a coach in the game is as extensive as anyone. I guess the comments made by Ginnivan leading into that game last week, the subsequent boiling over of emotions post-game, and I guess Ken's interview where he sort of said he'd put it up on the whiteboard at the footy club, the comments made by Ginnivan earlier in the week for some added motivation for the group. What was your take on that whole, I guess, situation and how it did boil over after the siren?
Yeah, I probably didn't like it. Kenny apologised immediately. He knew he transgressed and crossed a line that he probably shouldn't have got involved in. Player-to-player conversations happen clearly between the white lines. I'm just not sure whether it's a coach's area to intervene or have his say. And I think what I will say, the $20,000 fine doesn't justify the crime. I just think that's an outlandish figure that the Port Adelaide Footy Club have to pay on the back of what Ken said post-game. And the other angle that probably disappointed me was, and I'm pretty big on it, just respecting the opposition when it comes to what they do now post-event. You're in an area where Luke Bruce was about to be chaired off based on losing a final.
Yep.
The emotions are high. Sicily's missed a couple of shots at goal. One hit the post, as we know, with the last minute to go. And he, as captain, probably want to be the front and square person that could probably diffuse the situation, which he tried to do. But I just think you shouldn't muddy the waters in those situations and pay great humility to a person that's been well and truly respected over a long period of time the way he's played. And that's to Bruce to make sure he gets chaired off the right way rather than the interaction that did take place before it. But I understand where Ken was coming to too, because it's an emotional game, but I think there's a time and place for it.
Okay, the next game, what a turnaround this was when the Giants hit that lead at 44 up and they were celebrating. They looked home for all money, didn't they? And then the Lions were able to turn it around. And what was your take on this 18-minute mark of the third quarter?
Yeah, they were 44 points in front at that stage, weren't they, Marty? 8 minutes to go in the third term. And then all of a sudden they got a mini run on, didn't they? Loman Gold, I think by memory, McInerney, Cameron, Bailey, Zorko, they reduced the margin to 13 points pretty quickly. And then, as good teams do, they understand momentum has to be shifted. And they recalibrated a little bit, hit the scoreboard. And I thought once they got back out to 31 points, well, it's going to be very difficult for Brisbane to go again and win the game from there. But they never gave up and they didn't get the game on their time and terms. And we spoke about how they like to play their offence, and that's in kick mark control, but still shift the ball at speed and penetrate the game to give their forwards an ample opportunity to kick a winning score. The deliberate out of bounds from Taylor, he'd be ruining that. Insufficient intent. Who would have thought Danaher, the Jekyll and Hyde of the competition? He was at his very best late in that game to kick those 2 goals that mattered, which got him across the line. But full credit to him for not giving up. But I suppose GWS, their last 3 finals, they lost by a point, 5 points and 6 points. They're the games that are going to hurt for many years to come.
It's just you could just notice it, Marty, watching the game, and Mick as well, when they reached that point, they found themselves 44 points in front, 8 minutes left in the third term. They're home and host, absolutely. And you can just see, and we saw it the week before as well, their body language changes, the Giants. I'm not sure if it's a lack of leadership on field or if it's something in the coach's box, but they just go a bit into preservation mode and they get into that comfortability. It's become a really worrying trend for them for a side who, at their best, are absolutely contenders.
Yeah, and it's a fair point because a lot of people sort of ask, was it Brisbane who won the game or was it GWS that lost it? And when you get late in the game like that to be 44 points in one occasion, 8 minutes to go in front, and then see the opposition gain some momentum as we just spoke about, but then to find a way to give them another buffer, which they did, you'd think they've nearly won the game twice, but they lost the game twice, and that would really hurt, and they'd be asking themselves what went wrong out there. Where was our leadership? Who was trying to take control of what tempo we go into? What defensive mode do we use in this situation to take back momentum from them? In offence, how do we attack the game? Do we continue to play at speed and get one more to put the foot on the throat? Or do we go into a bit of self-preservation mode and go into kick-catch and then control the tempo of the game and defend with the footy in our hands? So a lot of those judgment calls might come from the coach's box, but you still need leaders to implement that. And that's the reason why I probably really respected Geelong through Selwood's leadership, but also Hawthorn through Hodge and Mitchell and Jordan Lewis. These experienced players have got things done when Hawthorn are spoken about, and even recently with Richmond with Cotchin's leadership. They just understood game trends and what mode to go in, and that's probably the next learning phase of the GWS leadership group, what they should do, when and where, depending on what the game says. That's on offer.
Okay, Mick, let's have a look at these games. On Friday night, Sydney are $1.35. These two markets have hardly moved all week. Port Adelaide, $3.20. It's 18.5 the line, and they've gone the total points at 168.5 for the first preliminary final. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think Port are massive odds in terms of overs. I can really entertain the margin of having a plus 18 start. But I do think Sydney will win, but I don't think it'll be as a walk in the park. I just can't get that round 21 clash out of my mind, Marty, where they lost by 112 points. They didn't score in the first quarter. Port Adelaide kicked 13 goals before half-time. They took 22 forward 50 marks because they turned the ball over, got it back in to their Port Adelaide teammates in their forward line, and they just destructed the defence of the Sydney Swans. And I know personnel has clearly changed since that point. Rampy's back in. We know Malikan's back in, who didn't play that night. I've always felt Darren Francis can be a little bit fragile when he was at Essendon, and he's also fragile at Sydney, and I think they're going to be stronger in that part of the ground. But yeah, 320 against a team that finished second on the ladder, a team that beat the Sydney Swans when they were in a bit of a trough themselves and won by 112 points. It just says to me that they're over the odds. Sydney being fresh, I think that'll hold them in good stead. Mills is a big out. Campbell will probably come in because he can play in defence or wing to cover his loss, or Lloyd goes back to that running back role that we know he can play, small defender role, and then Campbell could play on a wing. And Robbie Fox is the other one they probably entertain in front of probably Taylor Adams. He could be released because of his versatility. He can play as a defensive forward, or he can go to a Jeremy Cameron type, which he did in the grand final and kept Jeremy Cameron pretty quiet in a very good effort one-on-one. So he provides a team versatility. But I think Sydney deserve to be favourite. They've been the best team all year. We know they love a transition game. Will Port Adelaide single coverage be able to defend it and minimise the Swans' uncontested marks? Because if they do, she's going to be game on.
Mick, would you play Dixon?
I would, now that Marshall's out. On the SCG specifically.
Yep.
You get one kick out of that SCG centre square and played a lot of footy there, and it gets on top of your forwards pretty quick, and providing if it does hit the ground, those around him, because he is a good reference point, he very rarely gets outmarked, gets the feet of Dixon versus opposition, and then it gives you an opportunity to really squeeze the ground. I reckon the way Port Adelaide play defensively, really coming strongly behind their attack to really cover exits and squeeze the ground to make it small. I think Dixon's presence, he won't have to defend that much outside that 0 to 5 radius. And once it gets ball gets in motion, we don't expect him to do that anyway, but his primary role will be to compete strongly, be there for a bailout. He's clearly got size. He kicked that first goal of the match back in round 21. He looked a menacing presence against that undersized defence that night. The week off might do him well. I've subscribed in his latter part of his career. He seems to play best when fresh, and maybe that illness that kept him out last week might be a blessing in disguise.
Geez, you're hard to interview, Mick. I've had 3 questions ready to ask you, and you've nailed every one of them before I could get to them. You're a bloody beauty. You're dead right, though, but just going back, I think the SCG does give Dixon a chance, doesn't it? That one kick out of the centre can get down to that big body. And the other point, he'll be fresh. He was out last week because of a cold, flu or whatever. You've got to take that for what it is. And why not play him? Just some of those other players that come in for Sydney who didn't play in that other match. Parker, Papley, Amadi and McInerney. They were all out of that match as well. And Port did have Houston and Farrell who played well. So there is a big turnaround in personnel in this match.
No doubt about that, and that's why you don't want to get too concerned with the form line. You mentioned those players. They're 6 players that are clearly adding to both ends of the ground structure. Melican and Rampy down back. Amadi in front of the ball. McInerney, they're versatile, so is Campbell, but Papley's their barometer in front of the footy who knows how to kick a goal, but also he'll be in your face of the opposition and he finds a way, like he did last week, to bring the ball to ground. 1v2 situation, handballs to Heaney, and Heaney's long goal that dribbled through was a reason as to why they got to a preliminary final stage. So little things like that matter. It's a sum of the parts of what this group does that adds up to the end result. And if they get it right, they're as good as anyone in the competition, but there's one team that will try to take that away from them, and Port Adelaide is that type of team. We've witnessed it last week when they kept the Hawks to 72 points. That was superb, and that was the Hawks' lowest score since round 17 when Geelong kept the Hawks to 9 goals, 5-59, when the Cats dominated that game by winning by 51 points. So you've got to take a strength away from Sydney, and Port Adelaide are a type of team that can do that. They proved that last week.
One very, very quick one, Mick. What about Sydney's slow starts?
Yeah, well, that's a concern. We've spoke about that a lot over here in the radio we do over here, but also in the Herald Sun. They've got to find a way. And it's interesting, I heard Tom Papley talk this morning, and he actually spoke about the more you speak about it, the more it becomes a bit of a concern. So I don't think they've really addressed it as such on a regular basis. It's a bit like goal kicking, in it. The more you address it, the more issues become of it. I remember Chris Grant talking about it when he had the yips back in his career, and he spoke about that he was trying to get advice from Tom, Dick and Harry, and he just didn't know which one to decipher. Sometimes you've got to shut out the outside noise and concentrate on what you do, and ultimately it's about who wants to be the fire starter. And Isaac Heaney and Chad Warner and James Rowbottom, there's three pretty competitive beasts inside the contest. He'll start with Brodie Grundy. It's got to start from them. I think the game starts and stops with your midfield group, and they've got to get to work and roll their sleeves up to make sure they get territory at the SCG, and then they can dictate from there.
Twilight footy at the MCG, Mick. Geelong and Brisbane. The Cats $1.75 are favourites. Brisbane at $2.08. The line at 3.5. What are your thoughts here to round out preliminary final weekend?
Yeah, as much as I respect Brisbane, and they've bounced back from probably being in the footy wilderness early, a lot of people were questioning as their window has closed, and I was certainly one of those. But full credit to Fagan's trust with the group, really challenged them to get back to what they're good at. And let's face it, in simplistic terms for your listeners, they're a real strong contest clearance team that wants to get territory. And on the back of that good territory, they squeeze the ground, come in behind their attack and try to control front half game. And generally that serves them well because they've got potent weapons in that front half. We know Danaher's on song. Hipwood's enigmatic, but he can certainly turn the fortunes of a game. I go back to the game against the Western Bulldogs when I went there and watched him live. He was clearly best on ground against the Western Bulldogs that night that were going along okay. And we know Raynar's capable. We know Charlie Cameron can hit the scoreboard. And then Bailey and these types of boys can bop up and kick goals that matter. But I think it's all about the emotional attachment to the win last week, then travel back to Brisbane, the travel down here again to the MCG. That might bear a little bit more to burden through game's end. And I think fresh is best in this one. I think Geelong are primed. They'll get Stewart back. Probably Mullen is the unlucky one. Sam de Koning, I don't know whether there's been any noise in the last hour. I just haven't seen the socials or up to the news. But I'd be playing Sam de Koning. I reckon he's got to go to Danaher. So they've got a decision to make who gets spat out of the team also if he comes into it, because I think they're much better equipped if they can get Sam de Koning to play on Danaher, let Jack Henry play on Hipwood, and then allow Stewart to play midfield and fold back and work in combination behind the ball with maybe a Blixards or Stewart himself before Calamarchi probably is given the role to take away that intercept influence that Tom Stewart's got.
Well, there you have it. That's Mick McGowan's look at these two preliminary finals. Mick, we've gone with potentially Port Adelaide as being the overs on Friday night. And that the 18.5 point head start might be a half-decent bet there, Marty, and the Cats to hold firm and defeat the Lions there at the MCG Twilight Footy on Saturday evening there. Mick, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you and talk footy. We'll do it again next week in reviewing the results of these preliminary finals. We can't wait for them this weekend, and we'll speak again very soon. Before we let you go, how did your boys go last weekend, Mick? Did you guys play Keilor?
Yeah, we did. We played in the prelim, mate. We advanced. We're in the grand final on Saturday, so
brilliant.
we're coming up against a good team, so we're looking forward to the challenge to respond from the second semi-final loss, and we've got some pretty important players back, so it's going to be game on.
Mick, what's the inside of this story that Robbo broke about the undesirables coming into the Essendon change rooms after the games following Nick Hind and Jake Stringer?
Yeah, I haven't spoken to Robbo, to be honest with you, Marty, and I've only read what you've read, so I don't know the background to it and who those people are. But obviously the integrity unit of the AFL have probably assessed some vision. Maybe they got alerted that so-and-so is in the room that shouldn't be, and they probably contacted Essendon to say, well, just be careful who you have in your footy environment. It looks like they're tagged a player A, B or C, and Nick Hind and Jakey Stringer's name being attached to that association. Guilt by association is never always a positive when you sort of get mixed up in the wrong crowd, they think. But there might be more to it behind the scenes that I don't know. I don't know whether they're cousins. I don't know. I don't know whether there's a family connection through blood. But at the end of the day, the AFL seen it as an issue. That's the reason why they contacted Essendon. And obviously, with Nick Hind being delisted, it might be a bit of a storm in the teacup now, and well, he's not there no more.
Thanks, Mick. All the best. Mick McGuan joins us thanks to sponsors Danks Furniture, the comfort of home. Head into any of their 6 local stores in Joondalup, Willetton, Osborne Park, Port Kennedy, Mandurah or Midland. Clayton and Michael Arnold and the team out there, they'll look after you. Yes, the big names keep coming here on Straight Up. None bigger than Chris Waller, who joins us right now. A very good afternoon, Chris. Yeah, that's better. Very good. We'll do that. Take 2. Very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, got you this time. Marty Young and Riley Morgan with you. Thanks for coming on Straight Up.
Absolute pleasure.
Chris, it is a pleasure to have you joining us on the show this afternoon. And before we do get chatting your weekend runners across Randwick and Caulfield on Saturday, it's been a sad week for the team at Chris Waller Racing, losing a genuine top liner in Riff Rocket under some pretty tragic circumstances. A quick word, if you could, on this horse, Chris, who remarkably, despite what he was able to achieve in his time on the track, we may not yet have seen the best of.
Yeah, it was tough, all right, for sure. He only raced for 12 months and he won 3 Group 1 races. He still hasn't turned 4 yet. So, Rosehill Guineas winner, a Victorian Derby winner and an Australian Derby winner. He won his last 2 Group 1 starts, and that gives you a bit of an insight as to how good he was. And when you've got that type of horse winning those races at 3, automatically he's a genuine weight for age horse in the making. And unfortunately, for the horse's sake, he never got a chance to show himself as an older horse, and he's lost his life. And he put on an amazing fight. He had a colic surgery 7 days before he succumbed to complications due to colic surgery, and it was pretty sad. Simple as that.
Yeah, very tragic, Chris, to hear of that. I know the Capetis family have also meant a lot to you and your stable across the journey as well, so sending them our condolences here at Tab Radio with the passing of Riff Rocket a little bit earlier this week, Chris. But looking ahead to the team's chances heading to the races on the weekend at Randwick on Saturday, we might kick off in the 7 stakes, Chris, with your trio of runners, Fangirl, Zougotcha and Hinge, all head to race number 8 on the weekend. And Fangirl goes around the short price favourite in that race. Chris, what's your feel on how the race shapes out for her from yet another wide barrier that she's drawn?
Yeah, probably similar to her first up run. She drew wide, and I think that was the reason she got beat first up. She ran third to Zougotcha and Via Sistina. And barrier 9, you just need things to go your way. You don't want to be last. You don't want to be 3 wide without cover. because when you're racing against Group 1 horses, it's never easy. So I just hope with James aboard, James McDonald, we can find a reasonable path, hopefully obtain some cover and give her a chance to finish off. She's the best horse in the race, but even, as I said, you just need a bit of luck to go your way.
Yeah, I thought she was terrific first up. Having said all that, Zagotcha and Hinge look primed to get the right runs for those two?
They do, for sure. Hinge wasn't too far away first up. She was narrowly beaten by her stablemate Buckaroo in a weight for age mile race. And Zagotcha beat Fangirl last start. She's drawn well again. Her record over the mile or similar distance is very good. She's won Group 1 races at these distances. And, if she gets things to run, or things to run to suit, she'll certainly take a power of beating. And, look, I don't know what the prices are, but I would imagine Fangirl's favourite, but I think Zagotcha should certainly be respected because of the barrier draw alone.
Yeah, well, at the moment, the way it currently sits, Zagotcha double the price of Fangirl. It doesn't sound like Chris there's as much between them as the market suggests.
No, it's certainly not. Zagotcha was undefeated in the autumn. She won the... What'd she win? I think she won the Coolmore, and then she won the Queen of the Turf, both Group 1 races, and she won a race before that as well. So, yeah, she's no slouch, that's for sure.
Chris, all eyes in the T-Rose will be on Autumn Glow. The boom on this filly is huge, unsurprisingly. Could not have been more impressive in her 2 career starts to date. How has she done since that last start win in the up-and-coming?
Yep, she's done very well. So, obviously, she's a rising star in our stable. Again, I guess the next question is what's her chances because of the draw? I think she's drawn 9 of 9 or similar, and she's taking on a slightly different field. She's beaten handicappers in her last couple of runs. This time she races against the best fillies in set weight conditions, which is obviously stronger. And she's got a tough barrier to overcome. So, yeah, I think she can win, but she's still going to need to lift a little bit.
Okay. The form around those 2 wins has been very good, with Dawn Service winning the Exford Plate up in Melbourne and Snackmar not being far away last week. So that gives us some sort of a look. What about the other runner in the race, Lazura, who was just beaten by Manal and Amina in the Furious? How do you rate Lazura and Autumn Glow?
I think Lazura, 6 months' time, will be a pretty good filly. She's still quite a slight filly, and I take nothing away from her first up run. It was brilliant, considering she was first up taking on seasoned horses, and as you said, ran third to a couple of others in the race on Saturday. So she will improve. 1,400 metres should be no problem, but I can see her as a better horse in 6 months' time. So whatever she does Saturday, she'll be better again in the autumn.
All eyes, very intriguing race there at Randwick on Saturday, race 7, the Darley T-Rose Stakes. Chris Waller we're speaking to on Straight Up with Autumn Glow and Lazura heading to that race. Chris, an interesting runner of yours on the weekend in the Group 3 Kingston Town is Land Legend, who's always been a horse of interest for mine since that incredible performance in the St. Ledger. Where is he at, and has he shown signs that he can get back to that level of performance as he gets out in trip this preparation?
Yeah, he's certainly shown those signs, but where is he at? He's probably 1 run away from that, in my opinion. He's simply still carrying a bit of weight. His first up run was a pass mark. And the 2,000 metre distance on Saturday will be more suitable, but I'd say third up, 2,400, he'll be ready to peak.
Okay, do you want to head up to Melbourne? And let's have a look at this Underwood with Buckaroo. He was, very good to win over the 1,700 last start in the Chelmsford, just holding off Hinged. You go to 1,800 now around Caulfield. What's your thoughts with the great man Joe Maria in the saddle?
Yeah, slightly tricky draw. But he has raced a few times left-handed before, so I'm not concerned about going to Caulfield from Sydney. I think his win last start would actually give him a bit of confidence and help switch him on a little. Probably not the strongest Underwoods.
Agree.
And as you said, we've got a really good jockey aboard, so we're confident that he can run top 3 and hopefully win the race.
Chris, it looked a very suitable race for Kovalica, but you've opted against running him. He's a scratching from that race, the Underwood on Saturday. What's the story there? Is there another race in line for him a bit further down the track, perhaps?
Yeah, he's never raced left-handed, and Caulfield's not the easiest of tracks first time round, so he'll stay in Sydney and stay fresh for the Epsom. So he'll be close to our top seed for the Epsom in 2 weeks' time.
Okay, since his 3-year-old days, it's been an interesting journey with Kovalica. I'd love to get your explanation of it.
The coach hasn't quite got it right with him.
Yes.
He tried to get him to the $10 million Golden Eagle as a 4-year-old over 1,500.
Yep.
Prior to that, he ran second and beaten a nose in the Epsom. And then in the autumn, things just didn't really go his way. He just had bad draws, tracks, etc. And I think we've worked out now that he needs a bit of distance. So his first up run was a pass mark on a leader's bias track. He ran really well. He ran right next to Amelia's Jewel, which is obviously a horse you know a lot about. And I think he'll take benefit from that run. He'll be competitive in the Epsom. And then the coach will get him up to 2,000 metres, which will suit him better.
Can I just ask you one? From a trainer's perspective, and it's one that I've always been intrigued with. How difficult is it to keep those horses who basically might be looking for more ground at a distance that's just a bit sharp for them?
It's hard to quantify. Some horses do it, some don't. You need everything in your favour to win those big races. So I put it down to what positives and what negatives you've got in a race. If you've got one negative, I think a good horse can normally overcome it, whether it be a barrier draw or a distance. When you've got a barrier draw and a negative distance, you've got 2 negatives. That's hard. And then sometimes you've got track conditions as well. So it's really hard to quantify, but a good horse will do, like a horse like Northerly, he'd just do anything.
Yep.
But if you've got 2 negatives, like as I touched on, it's hard. And most horses aren't Northerlies. They're still good horses, but they're not superstars. And you need to be a superstar to be able to win against all odds. Simple as that.
Speaking of Chris Waller here on Straight Up. Chris, in the Caulfield Guineas Prelude, race 9 at Caulfield, Private Life won like a really strong, progressive colt at Warwick Farm with a big weight first up. What's the opinion of this horse, and where do you anticipate that he can get to if he continues to improve through the prep?
Yeah, the opinion's good, and the beauty of the spring or the autumn is when you see these young horses maturing, they can take on better horses and go to a new level. So that's where I see Private Life. He needs to do it, but he's got the makings of a good horse. Hence the reason for our confidence running him straight into a group race after a restricted midweek win. And as you touched on before, Joe Moreira is riding most of our horses in Melbourne on Saturday, which I see as a big plus. And, we think he can not only run well Saturday, but be a Caulfield Guineas type of horse.
I think he's a Joe Moreira horse looking at him as well. And absolutely no pot on Nashua Willer or James McDonald, but I think the Magic Man's going to really suit this horse. So we'll see. We see what happens. I want to ask you about one. Another one who sort of lost his way. We'll find out what happened to him. Francesco Guardi. He's running, what's he, in the 2,000 metres, I think, at Caulfield?
Race 7, the MRC Foundation Cup.
Yeah, so let's get his little history after he won the Moonee Valley Cup.
So he had a leg issue, and he was ruled out of being able to run in a Melbourne Cup, and they said basically if you want to bring him back, you need to put a screw into his leg where they thought there was a weakness, so we've done that. He's had the sufficient time to get over it. He's had a couple of runs in Sydney, and he's now third up over 2,000. So he's still got to find that form that he showed in the race you mentioned, but we're confident that he can get close to that and certainly train on and be a force to be reckoned with through the spring.
Now, before we let you go, Chris, and we really appreciate you being with us and such a busy man, giving us a bit of your time this afternoon, the segment on this show before you came on is actually sponsored by Danks Furniture, and a couple of the Danks boys are tuned in, and they have small ownership shares in a couple of good horses for your camp in Shiraz, who ran a placing in that Melbourne Cup, and Denmark as well, who goes around in race number 1 at Caulfield on the weekend, and they're tuned in live, and they're asking your thoughts on how Denmark is going to go in that opening race at Caulfield on the weekend, given he was pretty good last start at Moonee Valley.
Yeah, he was. I don't think we've quite worked him out yet. He does a few little things wrong. It's we're not sure if we've got the armrest on the left side or the right side or whatever we're doing, but when we get him sorted out, it'll be a comfortable watch for the owners in their lounge rooms. So, to answer your question, he's not straightforward, but he will be a decent horse in time. These Northern Hemisphere horses that we bring out to Australia, they're good horses, but they take a bit of working out. That's where he's at, to answer the truth.
We've gone through the key runners, Chris. Are there any others out wider for our listeners that they should be perhaps keeping an eye on this weekend?
I think you've pretty much touched them. It's an interesting time, as I touched on with the spring. There's so many up and coming horses. I think you're over most of them. We've got to try and save a couple for the Perth Carnival.
Yep.
We've got a horse like Lindemann that he had an injury after he won his last start, and that he missed the Queen Elizabeth. But he's the type of horse that'll start late in the spring. Watch out when he does resume, because he'll be a fresh horse on the scene, and hopefully we can get him over to Perth for a race like the Kingston Town.
Again, Chris, thanks for coming on the program. Continued success over that Spring Carnival.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much.
There he is, Chris Waller. There you have it, straight up. We're doing our best for you. Mickey McGuire, Chris Waller, all bases covered.
The big guns are still to arrive.
Yeah, Dan Cripps is about to join us for Straight Up. We're going to look at this meeting out there at Belmont Park. We need to cover off on a couple of little things very quickly. Jamie Carr found guilty.
3 weeks.
And then slapped with a wet fish, 3 weeks.
Your thoughts?
Oh, well, if you're guilty for that charge, I don't think I've heard of one for 3 weeks.
Nah, you're either you get off or you
get 3 months.
You get a decent whack.
Yeah, maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Hit us on the text line, 0427 789 571. Are we being a little bit too hard on the darling of the turf in Jamie Carr, or what did you think? Should she got more? Should she got off? Love to know it on 0427 789 571. Time for a break. We'll start off on the Perth Racing preview next.
The Perth Racing Preview is where the Straight Up team finds you the winners at Belmont Park. All the fixed odds markets are from Tab Touch.
Yes, there's something just starting to brew there at the end of that, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. You just turned yourself off.
No, I've turned myself back on.
Oh, you're back.
Yes. We've got a special guest joining us.
We do have a very special guest joining us, Dan Cripps. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, gents. Thanks for having me. I've been a long-time listener and just sitting on the bench waiting
for your turn.
Seeing every Tom, Dick and Harry come in and get their go. So now it's my turn. Let's do it.
There we go. And we've thrown up a fantastic meeting for you as well at Belmont Park this weekend. It's a beauty.
I can see why the humongous list that you have in front of me all said no. So you've really had to scrape the bottom of the barrel, but there's still winners to be found, isn't there?
There is. And one of our regular listeners, Duppy's getting involved very early, Mart. He's getting involved very early. He says, good luck to Brad with his circumcision surgery, and great to get Patrick on. Hopefully a bit more success then against the Lions. Great week for the Duffster last week. He's going again. We'll get to his tips a little bit later on in the program. But get your text in on the Retrovision text line 0427 789 571. Greg already weighing in that Carr got off very lightly. 3 months should have been the punishment.
Yep. With you, Greg.
I think Marty's on board.
I'm with you. Now, let's have a look at weather, track and rail out there on Saturday. It's going to be a perfect day, isn't it? Saturday, 21 degrees, mostly sunny. Those southeasterlies, they'll be around for the next month or two, as they normally are this time of the year. And the rail position is going to be...
Back to the true.
True.
After being at the 12 metres there yesterday.
At the Spandau Ballet, true. Okay. Now, what do you think about the meeting overall view?
Small fields would be the theme of the meeting, Dan, in terms of a track pattern or expected track pattern, not going in with any real preconceived ideas, just going to, I guess, have a bit of a watch on how that fence plays early.
Yeah, I reckon rail back at True, Belmont, on a good deck, like you said, Mart. I'd be going in thinking that horse is closer to the speed and on the fence going to be suited, and happy to play that until proven otherwise.
Similar last week?
Yeah, I think so. It's just been good to be back on top of the ground again.
Yes, and don't forget 7 Plus. Let's talk about that. Auspicious debut yesterday. Everything went tip-top. It was a terrific picture. The high digital pictures there were fantastic. So,
did you get them here in the studio?
Yes, we did. Yeah, big screen, that one. We couldn't miss them.
No, it was a good start. I enjoyed it.
Smiling little face.
He looked good yesterday.
Oh, it's his smirky. He always looks like he's sitting on something that he shouldn't be. The old Lockster. No, he was good. Scotty was terrific. Found a few winners. What more can you want?
Taylor Cortland from the yard.
He was on fire early.
Big just firing from the hip.
It was good to see and hear and listen to. Well, what about this meeting? Let's get into it. Tab Touch West Speed Platinum Handicap kicks it off.
No Meerkats today.
No Mearies. 12-14 the first, over 1,000. No Peng. Unfortunately, no Peng. He's already gone to the Goldfields. He's up there.
That's a worry.
A few tips of Boulder Cup if you want them. We might get to them later. Divine Flirt. Is Harrow just starting to wake up and, throw off the winter slumber and ready for a big summer?
Gee, if the runner Sun Bronze yesterday is anything to go by.
650 into 5 is the toppy. Oregon Hiker is 420 into 3. Smoky Mountain 12. His Angelic 440 into $3. Norwich 7. On the full is 8. And Rommel's Angel 41.
Found this one a bit of a tricky West Speed Platinum event to kick off proceedings, Dan. From a speed map perspective, you've got some horses that can go pretty quick early. Norwich drawn in 2, on the full drawn 1, Oregon Hiker in 4. How did you have this race mapped out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like you said, there's a few that are going to really want to hold a spot. So the first furlong's got to be interesting. To be honest, wouldn't go in with any confidence to say that I can pinpoint a leader, but whoever can jump the best and show a bit of intent might get there. In saying that, horses who don't necessarily have to lead this, I don't think, to be able to win it. So for me, a horse like Origin Hiker, I think, is going really well. 2 starts ago, down the Pinjarra Straight, on the wrong side, ran second to Pin Deep. We all know how good that form is. And then last start came out, led and was tough to get the job done, which has turned actually into a handy little form race. So
Certainly
I think, I reckon that horse is the one to beat.
I agree. I think Oregon Hiker's probably the one for me. I understand that He's Angelic has scope for improvement second up and will appreciate the weight relief, but I thought Oregon Hiker was pretty good in defeating that galloper there last start. It's proven a really good little form race. We saw Righto and Lord Shiva run the Quinella on Sunday just gone. Empress of India was a really nice win, I thought, running down Maiden Mexico yesterday to further frank that form as well. The interesting runner for me is Norwich, who was a first-up winner last prep in a Class 3 over 1,100 metres off a very similar spacing to, I guess, what he resumes from here. Not a overly strong West Speed Platinum, I don't think. And his form through last campaign actually reads up very well for this, around horses like Son of the Boss and Golden Fighter when he was going well, and Rupert's Empire. So It'll be interesting to see how he begins, because I think if Holly can kick through and hold the top from that barrier and not get crossed, this is a weaker contest than some of the races he was more than competitive in last preparation. So he was probably the runner of interest for me. Norwich, but yeah, I think Oregon Hiker's the one to beat.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that horse, Riley. For me, had the exact same thought process. Clearly the main danger, like you said, similar setup to last preparation. Interesting, he's 0 from 13 at 1,000 metres, but has still run some good races over that distance. And, yeah, first up winner at 1,100. Doesn't necessarily have to lead to run well either. So leads or box seats should be there for a while. Getting out to a nice price, actually, at around that $7 mark. And, yeah, I'd prefer a horse like that to He's Angelic or Divine Flirt, who are currently shorter.
Okay, now we forgot at the top of the show to tell you all about the Barbaro Butchers Quaddy Comp. Sponsored by Raf and Steph out there at Barbaro Butchers and Jaden.
Bit of action on this text line asking for this.
Well, they need to get their quaddies in. This has to be in by 6 o'clock tonight. You got to the end of drive to get them in. So it works like this. Final quaddie, the missionary quaddie. Maximum numbers you can put a 4x4x4x4. Now, if there's a tie, the quaddie with the least selection wins.
Least combinations.
Yes, the least amount of combinations wins. And if there's still a tie at the end of that, on Monday's drive, it goes into a ballot, and you and Alex can decide who is the winner.
Yep, we'll ballot it.
So that's the rules. There's a $100 voucher out there at Barbaro Butchers.
120 Cockman Road, Greenwood.
You bet it is. And what about Stefan? He has just taken the small goods world by a storm at Barbaro's. They've been voted Australia's best ham for their semi-boneless leg ham, award-winning small goods, family-owned and operated since 1987, premium, local West Australian farm produce, and they support local businesses. Find the Barbaro small goods at your local independent deli and grocer. They're everywhere. They're into IGA. They're into Farmer Jack's. So just ask for them by name, Barbaro Butchers Small Goods. And get the quaddies in on 0427 789 571 on the Retrovision text line and get them in as well. Now, race number 2, the Ascot Opening Day, 12th of October plate over the 1,000 metres. Salivating Ascot Opening. 1, Cedremalot, 260. 2, Keep It a Mystery, 11 into 440. Where is he? Where is he?
Well, this is the old. You can't.
He's just throwing a few bombs up when he's not here.
This is the hybrid markets today. Yeah. The copy paste operation. So
the old markets merging,
Yeah, the old merging of markets.
And this has twigged a little thing in my brain in the memory section of it. I'm pretty sure the last time in the old studios when he was away, he threw about 4 of these out. He says, hang on to this one while I'm not here. London's Image is $13. Red Autumn is 26, spec'd in from 34. Flagship, 18 to 14. Sesh, 26 into 15. And Queen of Hawks down the bottom's been firm at 270.
Yeah, this is a interesting race. I know you've got a lot of horses that have shown good early speed early in their racing careers. I thought this was a really fascinating speed map to try and decipher as well, pretty similar to race number 1. On the program, Sir Dreamalot was my starting point, returns to the race as this winner of the Supremacy and runner-up in a Perth Stakes behind Bustling in his juvenile season. Dan went into a pretty hot recent trial heat in the lead-up to this without his race day blinkers. I thought he travelled really well throughout. I thought he finished off well in that trial. He has the runs on the board in this field, has to carry some additional weight as a result, but I do think he's going to get a great run from the barrier, cuddled up, and has posted figures much stronger than anything else that has race day exposure here or has gone near yet. I think he's more than capable of resuming a winner. I'd love to see some support for a horse like a Keep It a Mystery or a Queen of Hawks, and we see that wobble out to something a bit closer to $3. But I think class will take him a long way.
Yep, I agree with you completely. That horse is the starting point. I wasn't overly taken with his trial, but it's definitely worth noting that this horse couldn't go a yard last preparation until the shades went on. So I think he is just a blinkers horse, which he'll get on Saturday. Like you said, there's a lot of speed in this race. The danger, Queen of Hawks, John Barry 1. She isn't the best beginner out of the gates, but she musters really quick. So it'll be interesting to see whether Pikey can hold the top. But either way, Sir Dreamlight just looks that horse who will just sit sort of 4th, 5th, one off the fence, let the speed unfold out in front of him and have last crack. So the only other query I have, I'm a little bit, I don't love to back a 3-year-old first up when they've had a really good 2-year-old preparation. I just think I like to see him come back and do it first.
Have a look.
Have a look, yeah. So this will be more of a watch race for me, but yeah, definitely right. So Dreamlight's your starting point.
Yep, I think keep it a mystery. There's been plenty of support at the double figures that was available early and improve her onto a better surface for Luke Fernie. And yeah, Queen of Hawks was really, Tash Faithful just really happy to let go of her in that most recent trial. She dashed away. The blinkers were on in that heat in comparison to the heat prior when they weren't on, just was a lot sharper with the application of those blinkers, and you'd expect an aggressive ride from William Pike from that inside draw, given, I guess, how the Belmont 1,000 metres has played across the season to really kick through and hold up in front.
I think so. I mean, I like seeing a debutant go to a maiden first up, but I mean, the stable had the success with Perfect Chant last Saturday, so it definitely can be done.
Yeah, and you'd think Neville from Oakland Park, he's not going to be messing around here. He'd either go to a maiden as well, wouldn't he? So obviously he thinks Queen of Hawks got the ability to be able to win first up.
It was a good trial. Very good trial.
Race number 3, the Key Clean Handicap over the 1,000 metres. This is time to go at 124, 1 Capital Flight, 650 to 550. Under Influence, 6 to 550. 8 No Other Man, 380 firm. Sinful Living, $2 to $1.90. Wednesday's 34, and a Chichi Walamali is $26 with 7 a scratching.
I don't mind one here, Marty. I don't mind how this race sets up for Capital Flight. Now, Sinful Living and 8 No Other Man, both very quick, both expected to go quick in this race. They'll press forward. I think it allows Capital Flight the opportunity to take the drop in behind that pair, stalking them. He meets Ain't No Other Man under the same weights as last start when he sat in the breeze on straightening and went straight past him. He meets Under Influence 1.5 kilos better for a 0.18 length beaten margin the last time they met as well. So he gets into this race nicely. It's been a while between drinks for him, I will say that. He hasn't won since December of 2022, but given I've got some real trust issues with a horse like Ain't No Other Man, Dan, Sinful Living looks your leader from barrier 1, but there's going to be some pressure on with Ain't No Other Man in the race, stepping up sharply in grade from a Class 3. Didn't really beat a great deal, so I still want to see her do it in this sort of company. I think she's certainly short enough at the $1.90. I just thought that Capital Flight at around that $6 mark with this setup, I'm happy to have something on him there at the price.
Main talking point for me in this race is, yeah, like you said, Sinful Living short enough. I think that's an understatement. I couldn't back her with Stolen Money at the odds on quote. I know she won well last start, but sort of got a day where you wanted to be on speed, got left alone, and I'd be really surprised if that race turned into a good form reference behind her. So really keen to take her on at the price. But, Riley, as you said, the problem is the 3 horses who look the logical dangers. It's hard to come at any of those 3 with much confidence. I mean, Ain't No Other Man's a horse that's sucked me in on more than one occasion. He just can't get the job done. And I think he won at Kalgoorlie, which was a while ago, but I don't even know when his last win before that was. He'll run a good race, but maybe it was more of a top 2 chance. Under Influence is a horse that looks like he's about to tail off, and then he can hit the line with full of gusto on his day, but not really the type of horse that I like to back. And yeah, I'm sort of with you, Riley. Capital Flight, but for me, the only issue is just the map. I'm not sure where he gets to from the gate, so he also hasn't won in a while. So a race that I'd stay out of, but definitely for those out there who are looking to play Sinful Living, I'd recommend waiting. I think that price is only going to get bigger. So if you got the right price, does she win? Oh, I actually didn't even have her on top, to be honest. Right. Yeah, so I'd be... Nah.
It looks to me as though Chris Parnham has opted to ride Under Influence over her, the stablemate, who I thought was potentially showing signs that, as you touched on, Dan, he might be coming to the end of his preparation.
The other thing with Sinful Living is Ain't No Other Man going to accept the breeze, or with Matty Derrick on board, they could get really ugly up front for the favourite.
And that's, I guess, going back to why I do think it sets up okay for Capital Flight, because you have those two real speed horses that will go early. The only other horse that has tactical speed in the race is, or slight tactical speed in the race, is a Chichi Volamali. So I just thought Luke Campbell with a positive ride early could land in that spot.
Yeah, that's a great point,
speed.
Actually. Might just be a vacuum for him. Just to slot
exactly. In. So I actually think around that $6 mark for Capital Flight, I'm happy to put that in the book, Marty.
Okay, you're in the book there with Capital Flight. Simple Living, Magumba by Safeguard. Colin Brown tuned in. Don't forget you can get a Safeguard deal with Colin Brown out there at Magumba, 4,400 on the book.
Gee, they're running hot at the moment.
They're having a good run. Good time to be running hot. Let's go to race number 4. The Perth Racing now hiring Carnival Staff Handicap over the 1,400 metres.
You a chance?
Not at this stage. Very full on getting here.
Times are tough.
Yeah, 3:59 start time. One Son of a God 61. Playhouse Patronus 9. Other One Son $3. Lord Gannicus $555. Wango Award is $850. Desert Nymph 4 to 340. Gee, they've had a spec at Corn Cob, 31 into 13.
Cobb.
And also Exel Train's been 26 into 11, so specking for a couple of roughies there, McGinnity.
Probably one of the better races of the day. Dan, I might let you kick off with this one and your thoughts.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a theme for the card so far. Another race with plenty of speed on paper, so horses like XL Train, Lord Gannicus, Corn Cob, and even Wango Award led last start. So I think they should run this at a genuine tempo. Now, for me, the horse that's going to be suited with that tempo, who can sit in just behind, is Desert Nymph. I think she's flying this preparation, 1-3 on the bounce, and then last start she just bombed the start, got back to last in a race that was partially run.
Yeah.
Although she was beaten around 2 lengths, sectionally to even get that close was just huge. She was basically impossible at the top of the straight. So if she can jump with them, hold a spot, and then she holds form, there's no reason why she can't get back into her winning ways. But I guess her knockers will say on a good track, is she as effective? She's definitely a wet tracker. My argument to that would be her win 2 starts ago, or it might be 3 starts ago now, was on a soft 5, and I actually thought that was nearly the best win of her preparation. So whether she can do it on a good track, we'll find out Saturday, but if you think she can, then I think she looks the one.
Yeah, 2 starts ago, soft 5, she was very good. It was a terrific win, and I think importantly for her, her chances, Dan, she gets Lucy Fiore back aboard, and Lucy seems to be able to really get her out of the barriers well. She seems to really jump under Lucy. So I think with the good barrier that she has drawn there on the weekend, that's a very important point. She out-sprinted Other One Son a couple of starts ago, and I don't think that race was run to suit Other One Son. In saying that, who has been super since returning to the track, Marty, this horse for Luke Fernie, after wanting to still overdo things a bit, given the race was run at a pretty moderate tempo. Third up now, up to 1,400 metres. They both suit him. I think he's ready to win, Dan, but the map just looks a bit sticky for him. Could I see Brad press forward and really kick him out of the barriers early? He's certainly not a horse who's tardy away, but I'm not sure they'd want to be caught deep with him either. He gets a 1.5 kilo on Desert Nymph for the 0.4 length beaten margin from last start at 1,300 metres. So I think he's ready to rock and roll and win a race, Other One Son, but it's just not a setup I want to be diving into, Dan.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, if you swap the barriers between Other One Son and Desert Nymph, then you definitely swap your clear on top selection. But I just can't see a spot in the map. If he goes forward, as we touched on, there's a lot of speed in this race. I think he gets posted, so then he probably has to go back on a day we've already touched on. Could play on speed, closer to the fence. It's just going to be a really big ask for him. And for that reason, Desert Nymph gets the nod. One more horse we have to touch on is Lord Gannicus.
Yep. Absolutely.
Good trial. And
really
then
good trial. First
up, surprisingly, they went to 1,000, but he didn't embarrass himself by any stretch, did he?
I just want to query on Desert Nymph back onto a firmer track. No concern?
Oh, definitely a query, yep. But we just said if she can do it on a soft 5, can she do it on a good 4?
And that brings Lord Gannicus right into it because he'd be screaming out for these sort of track conditions. And then that's probably why you've got the money for Corn Cob. Go and have a look at his form. It's all good track form, terrible soft form, and have a look. His last 6 starts have all been on softs.
Yeah.
Corn Cob wasn't a bad run last start, but he did get away
with a lot.
He got away with a lot, didn't he? He got it pretty cheap out in front, and yeah, as we've said, there's a lot more pressure in this, so I just don't think he's going to get that same run in front.
We're catching up with Grant Williams a bit later on following the Perth Racing preview, and I'm interested to ask him about Lord Gannicus because after the trial, the first up run over a very unsuitable 1,000 metres, Marty, I think this horse has come back super. Really, really good. And he does go 1,000 to 1,400 metres second up, which is a pretty steep rise and trip from a sticky barrier that he's drawn there on the weekend. But I think he's showing all the signs that he may have come back in career best form, this horse.
Would he be Kalgoorlie bound for something up there?
Well, we can find out later on.
Ask him.
She's got a Barbarella silver swimsuit, and when she needs to shelter from reality, she takes a dip in my daydream. My days end best when the sunset gets itself behind.
Yes. Keep those texts coming.
Get those quaddies in.
For Retrovision.
0427 789 571. McGinnity's weighed in. He says he cannot believe he's copping smoke bombs from you, Mart, when he hasn't priced up a single race.
Yeah. Good on you, McGinnity. Don't take holidays, mate. Brad Short's taking it up. He's having a go at pricing races, so watch out over your shoulder. Barbaro Small Goods, they bring us this quaddie, the Barbaro's quaddie competition. Get your techs in and get your quaddies in. They've been voted Australia's best ham for the semi-boneless leg ham. They're award-winning small goods. They're taking the small goods market by storm, and you just ask for them by name at your local independent deli and grocer, Barbaro's. And if you're not into small goods, you're just into good meat, get out to 120 Cockman Road like I did last Friday. Wowee, filled up the freezer and a few other things. The Tab Touch Stakes, a big one, $100,000 over the 1,600.
Good prize money.
River Rubicon, $650 from 7. Holy Enchantment. Oh, S. Now, hang on, S. We should be ringing him, shouldn't we?
He had a little smile on his face yesterday.
He's smirking.
He had a good day yesterday, to be fair, so he had plenty to smile about, but he just had that little pep in his step yesterday, SJ.
Richie Bell's one of those warped characters, right? So he knows that I decided to give Bellini Miss one more. I thought there could be a reason.
You missed out.
Missed out. If he hasn't mentioned the betting plunge and Bellini Miss being successful at its last start 15 times in the last, 4 days since it won, I've said, I'll knock it off, Rich. Captain Chaos, I think he was on it, 15 into 12. Vast Art, 250 to 230. Good to see D-Mac in good form out at the track yesterday. Rockanori's 650 to 550. Crescent City, 550 from 5. Scratch from the Boulder Cup, was it? Crescent City, am I confused?
I think always going around here.
Yeah, and he always is $14. Was it nommed or have I...
No, I think you just imagine
getting mixed up. Okay.
After you sleep.
Yep.
In that last race.
You reckon the nymph will handle the firm track, mate? Eh?
That's good. It's actually, I love the fact that our listeners keep you honest and are clued into that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I know. I only throw them out. I do it on purpose.
Yeah, the Tab Touch Stakes, good prize money on offer here. The feature, if you could call it that, on the program on the weekend. You touched on that man, SJ. Holy Enchantment resumes here at a mile off 3 trials leading in. And for the prize money on offer, Mart, just sort of gives the feel that SJ might have really primed him and set him for this sort of race. He was a 72-plus mile winner first up last campaign with 54 kilos off a solitary trial leading in. The fitness base will certainly be there with him this time around. Solid hit out at his most recent. The stable's ticking over really nicely. He's a class horse. He'll get a soft run. I just think personally, spotting a race fit informed horse like a Vast Art weight first up just might be a bridge too far for Holy Enchantment. I'm pretty keen on Vast Art here here. I think it's his race. I thought it was a huge running defeat. In the finally, Dan, he drew widest. He got right back off a moderate tempo in that race. 1-2-3 in running, finished 1-2-3 at the finish. He was briefly held up on straightening and had to check off heels to find clear galloping room. And the way he charged home to just miss by under half a length, I thought was an outstanding performance. He's drawn for a midfield cover run here, steps up to a mile now, fourth up onto an improving track, and I think this race pans out beautifully for him. I thought he posed the best bet on the program.
Yep, no, Riley, I agree with everything that you've said. One interesting thing I picked up, I think, was listening to D-Mac, might have been on the Hour of Power before that run of Varstar, and I think Digby might have asked him, will you take your medicine and go back from the draw? And he said, not necessarily, just let's see how the horse jumps. And anyway, the horse didn't jump well, hence why CJP was back. But this race has absolutely no speed whatsoever. So I'm just wondering whether if the horse does jump with him, could they push forward and be positive and make a really good thing out of it? Because on form, if he runs up to what he did last start, they're going to be struggling to beat him, aren't they?
I think so. Rockinori is the one who could get things incredibly cheaply in front, as you only noted speed in the race, but is 1,200 to a mile off 7 days. That's a query for mine. Not keen on Crescent City. River Rubicon can certainly improve second up from the finally. Just whacked away there first up, so clearly will improve from that, but does have to carry the 60 kilos here. I just think Varstart's your winner if Clint Johnston Porter, if he can begin and hold that position, as you touched on, there isn't a great deal of speed in the race, which I think he's capable of doing. And for me, Marty, I thought Holy Enchantment looked the main danger.
Can you just make sure when Grant's on the program, you ask him if he nominated Crescent City for the Boulder Cup?
All right, I will.
Okay.
Just to spare you.
Would you like a side wager now, champion?
Oh, okay. Well, is that what you've been doing over there in the corner?
No, I'm just asking.
You want to make a bet with me because you already know that if I make said bet, you're going to win it.
Now, the Barbaro Butcher's quaddie is...
That was very soft. It was a soft meat slap.
Yeah, it was. Let's give it another one.
There we go.
Is about to kick off, so get those texts in already. Gee, there's about 45 of them I can see up on the screen, so get your quaddies in. Remember, the least amount of combinations is very important, but the most you can have is 4 by 4 by 4 by 4. Okay, race number 6, Kev Fitzgerald's 50th birthday over the 2200.
Happy birthday, Kev.
Good on you, Kev. 50 years old. What do you, doff the cap? I Love Your Smile is $4.80. And I better get the fluctuations here. In from 13.
There's actually, and you
what's
know
happening? Was this a misprint?
There's one off the text line actually.
Amazing.
Fred from Fremantle has just texted in and said, "What's the address to send Brad his bottle of scotch?" He was telling everyone at the Brook Sports Bar he was going up 13s. I Love Your Smile, and that he drinks Shivers.
He's easily bought, isn't he? Easily bought.
There you go.
13 into 480. Hemlock Stone's been back, 320 into 270. That'll be Peter after getting the money yesterday. He's reinvested. How's yours? The Kerman, 12 into 10. Burnbrae. Is he going to get him again? 340 opened. He's out to 650. Mr. Talentino, 17 into 13. Red Dwarf, 8 to 950. Royal Gap, 21 to 18. Dark Looks, 11. Arnray, 13, 16 into 15. And Allegro del Mondo, 41 into 26. Spect.
Not exactly my cup of tea, these staying races, Dan. Are you in the same boat?
Riley, I know that you don't like the staying races, but because you've got to do a race-by-race preview, you'd just do enough to get by. Well,
yes, correct.
I don't have to do a race-by-race preview, so I have given this race absolutely 0. It's all yours, my friend.
Yes, I did do the bare minimum form for this race, Marty, and I can understand the betting move on the backup for a horse like I Love Your Smile up in distance, but gee, I love the run last weekend of Hemlock Stone. Ticked the staying trip box very nicely and backs up off the 7 days into what looks a very winnable race for the team out there at Bellis Racing's enjoying the company of Peter Borley out there at Belmont Park yesterday. Had a winner with Empress of India.
Solely owned by Karen Borley, if you don't mind.
If you don't mind, Karen was very, very happy with that result. Very nice win as well to run down a pretty sharp horse in Made in Mexico. But yeah, this horse, Hemlock Stone, I thought he was terrific the way he hit the line from the back in a really... They got along at a good clip in that race last weekend as well, and this looks to be another race where they will roll along with Kerman Rock and Arn Ray engaged. So Marty, I think if he handles the back up, he'll be very hard to beat. I was with Burnbrae last start, who's starting to develop a knack of being a perennial bridesmaid. Yeah, well, she was beaten a space, Hemlock Stone 2 back, without a great deal of luck, it can be said, and while she gets 1.5 kilos in her favour and steps up to a more, I think, suitable trip, I find it hard to convince myself she can turn the tables, and as we know, she's incredibly hard to catch. There's plenty of 2s next to her name in the form guide there at the moment, and yeah, I think I Love Your Smile and Kerman Rock, who's returned well, are the other key chances in the race. I Love Your Smile, very good at the mile last weekend behind Buckets Ridge, who I think is a very nice horse for the Grant and Lana Williams camp too, so I can understand the support there at the early double figures on offer, but Hemlock Stone I think will be very hard to beat.
Do you get a little worried when you're looking at that Warwick on the back up in trip? They've been pretty good at it over the years.
They have. She's a very different horse though to a Filthy Habit, Smarty.
Mm-hmm.
She's a different horse.
Anything to do with JT Warwick, the bloke is an absolute genius at whatever he touches.
Well, clearly.
So if he's got the 14s...
Clearly there's some mail around.
I'll back him in. Could have been down in Bunbury Monday and he didn't accept the phone call. Download the 7 Plus app today. Handicap is race number 7, which is the second leg of the Barbaro Butchers Quaddie.
We've actually just had one coming off the text line. Will Straight Up be getting its own show on the 7 Plus coverage?
Oh, I don't think so.
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, the world's not ready for this to go to telly.
Peng would be great in a Jason Richardson type of role.
He would be, Peng. How would he go bald? Oh, I think he'd look good. One is Megami, 18. 2 Grand Reserve, 7 to 550. 3 Hoist the Colours, 31. Peng Alert in Calgary, punters. He's up there. Watch out for the little man. He's hiding behind rocks. 4 Soldanel, 17 into 750. This is the biggest meerkat day I've ever missed out on.
You have.
Oh, 5 Chantel.
He's not even here for you either.
You don't pump his tyres up like that.
6 into 550. Chantel looking for a hat trick there. 6 is Famous Dane is $6. 7 Pagey's Turn, 28 Border Force, 34 in the 19. 9 is Canny Jack is 18. Great Fortune, 380 to 320. And Kazkazi is $18.
Yeah, this is found this one quite tricky, Dan. Were there any strong thoughts for you here over the mile?
No, this was the last race I got to, and it was a headache job, wasn't it? Really, really even. Wouldn't look out of place on a Wednesday. Had about 5 or 6 where I just bunched them up the top and said any one of those could win. For the sake of a tip, I'll put Chantel on top. Actually, more lightly raced than what I thought when I had a proper look into her profile. But she's flying, especially last start. I know she didn't beat a lot, but straight to the breeze, bolting around the turn, and just never gave any of her rivals a look in. So what they say about a mare in form, why can't from barrier 1 she jump straight to the front and give them something to catch at an each-way price?
Indiana's doing a terrific job with this horse, Marty.
Certainly is.
Yeah.
And for Pat Flown as well. She's an absolute stalwart of the industry, and good to see her come out with a nice horse. I think she's got a few horses with Indiana, and she's certainly done a good job with it.
Certainly has, and can completely see that scenario that Cripps just touched on eventuating on the weekend, particularly if it is playing a bit on speed. We'll touch on Soldanel, who there's been a big market move for. It was a pretty tough watch fresh for those that liked her on that heavy surface. She just got, I'll coin it, coffined on the back of the leader and never really got room to fully extend in the run to the line. She steps straight up to the mile off a month between runs, which I like. I like the fact that Steph Vahala's kept her on the fresher side into this run. I'm just not sure about her. She's only won the one race since her time in WA, Crip, and it was fresh, and she hasn't really... she's just been... I don't know. I find her hard to sort of gauge where she's at this stage of her career, Soldernell, but can certainly understand why there are some keen to butter up with her off that first up run. Famous Dane and Great Fortune both come through midweek form lines, but I think they're both nice horses who are going to be more than competitive here. Famous Dane, still only a very lightly raced 4-year-old, comes through a fast run mile, Class 1 at Northam last start. Ran second after doing the bullocking work from the breeze behind strong winner yesterday, Missile Storm, so that form's been franked as well. Drops 4.5 kilos at the weight. Should lob close enough, I think, to the 1 out, 1 back position in running here with Chantel and Hoists the Colours, likely to press forward to sit 1-2. So it looks a nice setup on paper for Famous Dane, and I could probably entertain a bet with him each way, to be honest, if he was to continue to creep out in price. Great Fortunes returned very well for David Harrison, Marty, who's just starting to, perk up a bit, Harrow, yes, which is good to see.
Looked good on the telly yesterday in high definition.
He did.
They make up required.
This horse off a pretty long layoff from the track, trialled well, really good first up on the wrong part of the track, back to the inside, then sat wide in a really solidly run race last time out, and was very good to sprint strongly late and score, holding off a pretty promising one for Adam Durant in Simply Thinking as well. So I think Great Fortune and Famous Dane are the two for me here that I'll be looking at, but can certainly understand the argument each way for Chantel as well, who's going super.
Okay, we go to race number 8, third leg of the Barbaro Butchers Quaddie, and this is over the 1,600 metres for Morley Growers Market, been terrific sponsors for a long time. 4:40 start time, and one Classic Rogue is $8.50, 2 In Good Order, $2.75, 3 Manavendra, 15, Mountain Ash, 20, Ace Command, 51, Civvy Street, had a little go at this, 81 into 20, Santa Bray has been 81 into 26, Simply, 280, 260, Manhattan Strip, 34 into 15, and even Yelling Up Girl down the bottom, 17 into 12. So they're specking some roughies here.
Yes, they are. I thought this was the most difficult race of the day to really have a firm grasp on, Dan. I thought it did look a good race on paper for a horse like Simply. In Good Order was able to hold him off last time out. Simply gets 1.5 kilos on him for a 0.3 of a length beaten margin. Drawn better here. But they're both horses, Marty, who might just be In Good Order as well included in that. Might just be already looking for a bit further as well, both staying types. But, yeah, I think you could make a good case that Simply, who's your current favourite, it does look a good race for him on paper.
I think so, Riley. If you go back, they obviously quinelled the race when they had their last start. If you go back and watch that race a few times, there was a key moment in it which ended up having a pretty big impact, I thought, to the result. So Pike on Simply was following Antique Star, who on paper was a great back to be on because that horse won really well at the prize start. And he had Chris tucked in on his inside, and he must have been thinking, you beauty, I've got him locked away. And then Antique Star just dropped off a lot quicker than what Pike would have expected, which let Chris and In Good Order out. And I think at the end of the day, that was just the difference. If Antique Star takes Pike into the race, then I think you get a different result. I personally thought out of those two, Simply was the better run. As you said, only 0.3 of a length, gets 1.5 kilos swing for good measure. So in a race where I thought those two looked the obvious ones, clear lean to me was Simply.
He'll be hard to beat, Marty. I think we'll catch up with Grant and get a bit more of an elaboration on him later on. Classic Rogue is the other genuine winning chance I thought, is going super at the moment as well. Was edged out in a 3-way go last start between Category 3 and Captain Pluto. He ran second again last weekend, and although he's pretty hard to catch, Marty, the captain, he's still going well, so it's not bad form. Yeah. Not bad form at all.
The only other one, just want to touch on at odds, Manhattan Strip.
Yep.
Probably not going at his best, his prep, but could be an improvement just back on top of the ground.
Absolutely.
It's got a little bit of a whiff to it, this race. I think if Simply doesn't win it, I can understand why there's been specking for a few at rough odds. Okay, the final leg of the Barbaro Butchers. Get those quaddies in. You could win a $100 voucher out there at Barbaro's. The voucher is to the butcher shop, by the way, not to the small goods. But
Jeez, some quaddies flying in.
Ask for them by name at Farmer Jack's, at IGA. Go wherever you can get all your good food and ask for the small goods there from Barbaro Butchers. So are they going 4x4x4x4? Are they showing a little bit of...
There's plenty of ticker being shown.
Good. We need it. All WA races live and free on 7+ handicap over the 1200. I asked Sophie Stone yesterday afternoon, whilst I was working with her, tell us how you get on to 7+. Well, I reckon after about 3 minutes, I said, that's enough, Soph. You've confused everyone. Why don't you just turn your tally on and find it? 1 influencing, 850. 2 leading Taddy, 34 into 13. The Great Hoya, 15 into 13. Tell me, Jellycan Run, did it take anything out before I start? No.
It was already out.
Okay. The Great Hoya is 15 to 13. Elite One, 5 to 390. King Akeed, 460 to 390. New Music, 850 firm. 8, He's Got Wings, 34 to 31. Mean Machine, 4 to 350. I'm Eugene, 126. And Sweet Tea for Bradley, $61.
Well, there was clearly a move at the top there for leading Taddy, and I can understand that betting move, Marty, as well. On that, I guess, the adage back on top of the ground, a lot of these horses who have been racing on soft tracks can really improve, and I think he's certainly one of them, Dan, who can give this race a bit of a sight at the odds. He's down in class. Up to 1,200 metres, I think, suits him as well. I thought if he could kick through in the lead or box seat, and the track has shown that's certainly of no disadvantage, then I could see him running a big race at a big price, leading Taddy. And I found this a tricky race to finish the day, but he was where the main value for me in the market sat at this current point. And I guess writing some notes before coming in, Mean Machine brings an attractive profile. What have you made of this horse's preparation to date, Dan?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously, 2 starts ago, got the job done with a nice ride in the breeze from Pikey, and then last start had to do it tough, 3 deep. Loom the winner, just got run over late. We all think Arcadia Park goes well, and the Casey horse, which escapes my name, its name escapes me at the moment.
Jackpot Bingo.
Jackpot Bingo, that's the one. He went good on Wednesday. So, But Riley, you've stolen my thunder here a little bit. But on a day where I found it hard to get very excited about a lot of the races.
You haven't given us much, mate.
I know.
You've given us less.
I've given nothing, have I? But I'm saving the best till last.
Okay.
Leading Taddy for me is the clear best bet on the card.
Wow, there we go.
Clear best each way bet on the card. So form from last prep just reads super for a race like this. Finished a length behind Storm Chaser. Ran 3rd in the Pinjarra Magic Millions. Look, hasn't gone as good this prep, but first and second up, pulled up with thumps. And as you touched on, Riley, both on a soft track. Last run on a soft 5 over 1,000 metres, which is short of its best, was really good. Beaten only 2 lengths in a 66+. Now drops back to a grad. This isn't a strong race. Drawn barrier 1, up to 1,200 metres. I think that's where the place is going to be, close to the fence. Look, when the $34...
Oh, you snookered some of us. You rifled it.
Christmas has come early, but $13 now, still well over my price. So
there you go.
I'm actually in Melbourne on Saturday, so it's going to be 7:20 over there. It's going to be a long wait, but that's the race that
imagine if it's into. What sort of a night we got ahead of us?
There we go.
Hey?
Took me a while, but we got there. Some excitement in this card.
Yeah, well, yeah. So on the way in, leading Taddy was still around that $21 mark, so there's been a bit of support as well since we started recording, Marty. Yep. And just of the other key chances in the market, I just couldn't find an edge there either. I thought Elite One is capable of winning again, but was it his day last time out with that beautiful 3-deep cover, Trip in Transit, blended into the race beautifully, just got the PR there. Will he get that same run this time out from a sticky barrier? Unsure. King Akeed was good last start, progressing nicely. Stepped straight from a maiden win into Saturday Company. Was beaten under 2 lengths. Silver Eye from the widest barrier. Beat home Elite One there. So actually gets a kilo in his favour for beating him home, but Elite One never really got a crack at them. It was inconclusive in that race. And yeah, Mean Machine's the X factor back to 1,200 metres, 3-year-old, carries no weight, shown versatility, which gives Chris Parnham options from the barrier as well. But, yeah, sorry for jumping the gun and getting in ahead of you there, Crip. But, yeah, I thought Leading Taddy actually wasn't a bad each-way bet either in a pretty tricky race, I thought, to finish the day.
Yeah, I agree. Like, Elite One last start, good win, but there were so many hard luck stories in behind it. King of Keys probably the one that, if I had to have a saver, that would be mine. I mean, good run last start, straight to a grad from a maiden. Now gets Pike and a low draw, so should settle a lot closer. But just looking at the market now, a horse like Influencing is shorter than Leading Taddy. I just don't think that horse has come up this prep. So Leading Taddy each way all day for me. Pretty keen.
There it is. Now, we've got to get to Jess Earnshaw at Northern for a trackside preview. So let's get your best bets first.
Best bets for me, Marty. We'll go race 3, number 1, Capital Flight. I like how the race sets up for him. I think the best bet on the program, race 5, number 4, Vastart. And in race 7, I'll go race 7, number 6, Famous Dane. And I'll have a little saver on the 10, Great Fortune as well.
And for me, Mart, I'll go, obviously, race 9, number 2,
yes,
Leading Taddy each way. And then we'll stick with Riley and go Vastart in the feature. And I also think Simply will be pretty hard to beat in race number 8.
Vastart and Simply from the Williams stable. We'll talk to Grant pretty soon about its chances as well. Hey, Dan, just before we go, can brother Patrick win the Brownlow?
I hope so. I'm flying over for it, so it'll be a fun night if he does. But look, don't have any intel, just like every other recreational footy punter.
Unless you know an umpire.
Definitely don't know any umpire. It would be nice, wouldn't it?
It'll be a fun night.
But it seems like all the models and the data gurus think it's a 2-horse race. So I think
the models.
The models, yeah.
Oh, okay.
The betting models.
I thought you meant the other models.
Not your models, Marty.
Yeah.
Not the leggy blonde models, but...
Someone mentioned models.
I think, Paddy and Dacos, they'll just keep clearing out in the market, and they look the two.
Okay. Brilliant. Thanks for coming in, Dan.
Pleasure, boys.
All
Thanks
the best for that last tip. We're all going to join in there.
We'll do it again soon, for sure.
We hope you enjoyed another stimulating episode of Straight Up. All betting markets supplied by Tab Touch. All care, no responsibility went into the production of today's podcast.